Another failed pitch. Amanda smirked from the doorway of my tiny apartment, designer purse swinging from her perfectly manicured fingers. Mom sent me to check on you since you missed another family dinner. Though I can see why you'd want to hide in this. She wrinkled her nose. Charming little space. I took a deep breath, refusing to let her see how much her words stung. My name is Emma Chin, and at 28, I was living what my family considered a disappointment of a life. While my younger sister Amanda had followed our parents' carefully laid plans, prestigious business school, cushy corporate job, engagement to a wealthy heir, I had chosen a different path. One that currently had me working 80-hour weeks on a tech startup from my one-bedroom apartment in a less than glamorous part of town. I'm fine, Amanda, I said, turning back to my laptop where financial projections and pitch decks filled the screen. Just busy. Tell Mom I'll try to make it next week. She laughed, the sound dripping with condescension. Still chasing that silly dream. When are you going to grow up and join the real world? Dad's offering you a position at the firm again. You could have a real career, a real life. My company is real, I cut in, fingers tightening on my coffee mug. Just because you don't understand what we're building. Oh please, she waved her hand dismissively. You've been building for what, 3 years now? And what do you have to show for it? A bunch of code no one wants to buy and an apartment that looks like a college dorm. Meanwhile, I'm getting married in 6 months to James, making partner at the firm, and she gestured to the massive diamond on her finger, actually succeeding in life. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my expression neutral. Amanda had always been like this, cutting me down to build herself up. Ever since we were kids, she found ways to remind me that she was the perfect daughter while I was the disappointment, the dreamer who refused to fall in line. What Amanda didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my silly startup was on the verge of something huge. For 3 years, I'd been developing an AI-powered financial analysis platform that could process and predict market trends with unprecedented accuracy. We'd had our share of setbacks and failed pitches, but last week everything changed. A major tech investor had seen our demo and immediately recognized its potential. The meeting I'd missed family dinner for? It wasn't another failed pitch, it was signing preliminary paperwork for a $30 million acquisition deal. But I hadn't told my family yet. After years of their doubt and dismissal, I wanted everything finalized first. My wedding is in 6 months, Amanda continued, examining her nails. Try not to embarrass the family by showing up in whatever discount store clothes you're wearing these days. And please bring an actual gift, not another one of your homemade presents. I have a reputation to maintain. I thought about the envelope sitting in my desk drawer, the one containing proof of the acquisition deal that would make me worth more than her fiance's entire family. For a moment, I was tempted to pull it out, to watch her smug expression crumble. But no, I'd wait. The timing had to be perfect. Don't worry about my gift, I said mildly. I've got something special planned. She rolled her eyes. Whatever. Just don't make us look bad. Mom and Dad have enough to worry about with you being. She gestured vaguely at my apartment, like this. After she left, I sat back in my chair, emotions churning. The apartment she'd mocked was small, yes, but it had been my launch pad. The worn couch had hosted countless late-night coding sessions. The whiteboard-covered walls held the evolution of algorithms that were about to revolutionize financial technology. This was where I'd built something real, something valuable, despite their constant criticism. My phone buzzed, another message from Mom asking why I'd missed dinner. I ignored it, focusing instead on the latest email from our investors. The due diligence process was nearly complete. Soon, very soon, everything would change. The next few weeks passed in a blur of meetings, paperwork, and careful planning. The acquisition deal was moving forward, but I insisted on absolute secrecy. Outside of my small team and the investors, no one knew what was coming. Amanda's wedding preparations provided the perfect cover. Everyone was too busy with cake tastings and venue tours to pay much attention to my continued absence from family events. Then came the day that changed everything. I was in my apartment, surrounded by my usual chaos of coffee cups and laptops, when my phone lit up with a notification. The final paperwork had been signed. The deal was done. My tiny startup, the one my family had dismissed as a waste of time, was now officially worth $30 million. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the confirmation email. 3 years of work, of doubt, of pushing through their criticism and judgment had led to this. I thought about all the family dinners I'd missed, all the snide comments I'd endured, all the times they tried to convince me to give up and be realistic. My hands shook slightly as I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the envelope I'd been saving. Inside was a simple document, proof of the acquisition and my new net worth. Amanda's wedding was in 2 weeks. After years of being the family disappointment, I was about to give my sister a wedding gift she'd never forget. But as I looked at the envelope, a plan started forming in my mind. The acquisition was just the beginning. If they thought this was the extent of my success, they had no idea what was coming next. Because while the company was worth $30 million now, I knew its true potential. This was just phase 1. I picked up my phone and finally replied to my mother's latest message about wedding preparations. "Don't worry," I typed, a small smile playing at my lips. "I'll be there, and I have the perfect gift planned." The next day, I walked into my first meeting as a newly minted millionaire. The old boardroom where I'd once pitched desperately for funding now felt different. The investors who had believed in us sat around the table, but there were new faces too, representatives from the acquiring company eager to discuss next steps. Emma, the lead investor, smiled warmly. "Congratulations again. Are you ready to announce the acquisition publicly?" I shook my head, thinking of Amanda's upcoming wedding. "Not yet. Let's wait 2 more weeks. There's something I need to do first." They looked curious but didn't push. They'd learned to trust my instincts. After all, those instincts had just made them all very wealthy. As I left the meeting, my phone buzzed with another text from Amanda. "Mom says you're finally coming to the wedding. Try not to ruin my special day with your entrepreneur talk. No one wants to hear about your failed startup." I smiled, tucking the phone away without responding. In 2 weeks, they'd all understand exactly what I'd built. But the acquisition wasn't the only surprise I had planned. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right in ways they'd never imagined possible. The 2 weeks leading up to Amanda's wedding passed in a whirlwind of activity. While my family was consumed with final dress fittings and seating arrangements, I was quietly laying the groundwork for what would come after the acquisition announcement. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. I stood in front of my mirror, adjusting the designer dress I'd bought specifically for this occasion. My first real splurge since the deal closed. The price tag would have made my old self flinch, but today it felt like armor. "You're late," my mother said sharply when I arrived at the church. She looked elegant as always, not a hair out of place. "Amanda's been asking where you are. Try not to cause any drama today, Emma. This is your sister's moment." I bit back a laugh at the irony. If she only knew what was coming. The ceremony was exactly what you'd expect from an Amanda Chan production. Extravagant, picture-perfect, and designed to impress. I sat quietly in my assigned seat, watching my sister marry into what our parents considered an impeccable merger of 2 wealthy families. James' father owned one of the largest real estate development companies in the city, and the wedding was as much about business connections as it was about love. During the reception, I waited patiently for the right moment. Amanda was holding court at the head table, basking in attention and compliments when I approached with the envelope. "Time for my gift," I said, keeping my voice light despite the tension thrumming through me. Amanda's smile turned sharp. "Oh, you've actually brought something. I assumed you'd make excuses about being too." She paused meaningfully, financially constrained. Several of her friends tittered, and I saw our mother close her eyes in embarrassment. James, Amanda's new husband, at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Open it," I said simply, holding out the envelope. She took it with perfectly manicured fingers, her expression dripping with disdain. "If this is another one of your homemade certificates or whatever." The words died in her throat as she pulled out the documents. I watched her eyes scan the page, widening as the numbers registered. $30 million. My company's valuation. The acquisition details. My new net worth. "I don't," she started, her voice faltering. "This isn't real," I supplied helpfully. "Oh, but it is. That silly startup you've been mocking. Turns out it was worth something after all." The color drained from her face as she continued reading. Around us, guests were starting to notice something was happening. Our mother stepped closer, peering at the documents in Amanda's trembling hands. "What is this?" she demanded, but I could see she already understood. The implications were hitting her like physical blows. All those times she'd sided with Amanda. All those lectures about being practical. All those disappointed sighs when I missed family events to work on my company. It's exactly what it looks like, I said calmly. The company you all dismissed. It just sold for $30 million. Consider this my wedding gift. Proof that sometimes the path you don't understand turns out to be the right one after all. Amanda's hands were shaking now, the paper crinkling in her grip. But you live in that tiny apartment. You're always working. You never have money for anything. I smiled, thinking of all the nights I'd stayed up coding, all the investor meetings I prepared for while they assumed I was failing. That's what building something looks like, Amanda. Not all of us start at the top. Our father had joined us now, his face a mask of confusion and dawning realization. He'd spent years trying to convince me to join his firm, to follow the path he'd laid out. Now he was staring at proof that my chosen path had led to more success than he could have imagined. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "Would you have believed me?" I countered. "Or would you have dismissed it like everything else I've done that didn't fit your plan?" The silence that followed was deafening. Around us, wedding guests were whispering, the news already starting to spread. Amanda's perfect day was being overshadowed by the revelation that her unsuccessful sister had just become the wealthiest person in the room. But this wasn't about upstaging her wedding. This was about something bigger, about proving that success doesn't always look the way people expect it to. And more importantly, this was just the beginning. "There's more," I said, pulling out another document from my clutch. "The acquisition, that's just phase 1. Our technology is being implemented across major financial institutions starting next month. The projected valuation after integration." I paused, letting the moment stretch. "Over 100 million. Amanda sank into her chair, the elaborate white dress pooling around her, her perfect wedding, her carefully cultivated image as the successful sister. All of it was crumbling in the face of what I'd built. But you can't," she stammered. "This isn't. You're supposed to be the failure," I finished for her, "the disappointment, the one who needed to grow up and join the real world." Funny how things turn out, isn't it? Our mother was still staring at the documents, her social mask cracking for the first time I could remember. "Emma," she started, but I held up a hand. "Save it," I said quietly. "This isn't about revenge or proving you wrong. This is about proving myself right, something you never gave me the chance to do." The weight of those words hung in the air. Years of dismissal, of subtle and not so subtle put-downs, of being treated like the family disappointment. All of it was being rewritten in this moment. But as I stood there, watching my family process the magnitude of what I'd achieved, I felt strangely empty. The vindication I'd expected, the satisfaction of finally showing them how wrong they'd been, it wasn't quite what I'd imagined. Because the truth was, I hadn't built my company to prove them wrong. I'd built it because I believed in what I was creating. Their approval or lack thereof had stopped mattering somewhere along the way, replaced by something more powerful, belief in myself. The reception continued around us, but something fundamental had shifted. The perfect image my sister had crafted was now tinged with the knowledge that she'd spent years mocking someone who had quietly built something extraordinary. As I turned to leave, Amanda grabbed my arm. "Wait," she said, her voice small. "You can't just. This was supposed to be my day." I really looked at her, and saw something I'd never noticed before. Fear. Fear that maybe she'd chosen the wrong path. Fear that all the certainty she claimed about success and failure might have been wrong. "It still is your day," I said gently, "but it's also the day you learn that success doesn't always look the way you think it should." With that, I walked away from the head table, leaving my family to grapple with the implications of what they just learned. But this wasn't the end of the story, not by a long shot. Because what they didn't know, what none of them could have guessed, was that the next phase of my plan was about to change everything again. The aftermath of Amanda's wedding was even more dramatic than I'd anticipated. Within days, news of the acquisition had spread through our family's social circles. The same people who had whispered about my wasted potential were now scrambling to congratulate me, to claim they'd always known I would succeed. But the real changes were happening behind the scenes. The Monday after the wedding, I walked into my company's new offices, a far cry from my tiny apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer views of the city skyline, and the space buzzed with energy as our expanded team worked to implement our technology across major financial institutions. Emma, my assistant, called out as I passed her desk. Your mother's called 3 times this morning, and your father left 2 messages about meeting for lunch. I nodded, unsurprised. Hold all family calls for now. We have more important things to focus on. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. While my family tried desperately to process what had happened, I was focused on phase 2 of our expansion. The initial $30 million acquisition was just the beginning. We were now working on integrating our AI technology into the global financial system in ways that would revolutionize how markets operated. Amanda tried reaching out several times, her messages oscillating between apologetic and defensive. You could have told me, one text read. We're sisters. I deserve to know. I didn't respond. Years of her constant belittlement and mockery couldn't be erased with a few hasty apologies prompted by my success. Then came the day that changed everything again. I was in a meeting with our development team when my phone lit up with breaking news. James' family's real estate empire, the one Amanda had married into, was crumbling. Their major projects were failing, and rumors of financial misconduct were surfacing. My AI platform had predicted this collapse months ago. It was part of why I'd chosen Amanda's wedding day for my announcement. I'd known what was coming, known that her perfect marriage into wealth and status was built on a foundation that was about to crumble. That evening, as I sat in my office reviewing reports, my father appeared in the doorway. He looked older somehow, less certain than I'd ever seen him. Nice office, he said quietly, taking in the space. Different from that apartment we kept telling you to leave. I set down my tablet, studying him. What do you want, Dad? He shifted uncomfortably. Amanda's struggling. James' family situation. They're going to lose everything. She doesn't know what to do. And I kept my voice neutral, though my heart raced. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. And he hesitated. She needs help. Financial help. The kind of help that you're now in a position to provide. I let out a small laugh. You mean she needs money from the sister she spent years mocking? From the silly startup she couldn't be bothered to understand. Emma, please, he said, and for the first time in my life I heard real emotion in his voice. I know I didn't support you. I was wrong. We were all wrong, but she's still your sister. I stood up, walking to the window. Below, the city lights twinkled, reminding me of all those nights I'd spent working while my family assumed I was failing. Did you know, I said conversationally, that our ad platform predicted James' family's collapse 6 months ago? We saw the signs, the patterns, the inevitable crash coming. That's what our technology does. It sees what others miss. He stared at me, realization dawning. You knew. At the wedding, you knew this was coming. I turned to face him. I knew everything. I knew their company was failing. I knew Amanda's perfect life was about to implode. And I knew that eventually you'd all come asking for help. So this is revenge, he asked, his voice tight. Letting your sister suffer to prove a point. No, I said firmly. This is business. The same business you all dismissed as a waste of time. The same business that's now worth more than James' family ever had. I walked to my desk and pulled out a folder. Inside is an offer, not charity, but a real business opportunity. Our company needs someone to manage corporate communications. Someone who understands both technology and high society. Amanda's actually qualified for that, despite everything. The salary's excellent, the benefits are comprehensive, and it comes with stock options. My father took the folder with trembling hands. You're offering her a job. I'm offering her a chance, I corrected. The same chance none of you ever gave me. She can take it or leave it, but it's a real opportunity to build something of her own, instead of just marrying into someone else's success. He opened the folder, scanning the details. This is generous. It's fair, I said, and it comes with conditions. She'll start at entry level like everyone else. She'll have to prove herself like everyone else. And most importantly, she'll have to acknowledge publicly that she was wrong about me, about my company, and about what success looks like. And if she refuses, I shrugged, then she can figure out her own path forward, just like I had to. He nodded slowly, understanding finally settling over his features. You're not the same person you were, he said quietly. No, I agreed. I'm the person I always was. You just never took the time to see it. As he left my office, folder clutched in his hands, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. This wasn't about revenge or proving them wrong anymore. It was about creating something new from the ashes of their expectations. The next day, Amanda called. For the first time in our lives, she didn't speak with contempt or condescension. Instead, her voice was small, uncertain. "Did you mean it?" she asked. "The job offer?" "Every word," I replied. "But it won't be easy. You'll have to work harder than you ever have before." There was a long pause. "I don't know how to do that," she admitted finally. "Work hard, I mean, not like you do." "I know," I said softly. "But you can learn, if you're willing to try." Another pause. "Will you? Will you teach me?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. This was my sister, the golden child, asking me, the one they dismissed, for guidance. "Yes," I said finally, "but not because you're my sister. Because everyone deserves the chance to prove themselves. Even you." Over the next few months, something remarkable happened. Amanda threw herself into the role with determination I'd never seen from her before. She worked late, asked questions, learned everything she could about our technology. Slowly, the entitled socialite began to fade, replaced by someone who understood the value of building something real. Our parents watched from a distance, unsure how to navigate this new dynamic where their successful daughter worked for their rebellious one. But I didn't need their approval anymore. I had built something larger than their expectations, something that was changing the financial world in ways they were only beginning to understand. 1 year after Amanda's wedding, our company's valuation hit $150 million. The AI platform had exceeded even my ambitious projections, becoming an essential tool for financial institutions worldwide. Amanda had earned a promotion, not because she was my sister, but because she genuinely proven herself valuable to the company. As I sat in my office reviewing the latest projections, I thought about that tiny apartment where it all started, about all the doubts and dismissals I'd endured, about the long journey from being the family disappointment to becoming someone who could offer others a chance at redemption. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. "Team meeting in 5? I have some ideas for the new communication strategy." I smiled, remembering her sneers about my silly startup. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong. It's about giving them the opportunity to prove themselves right in ways they never imagined possible. On my way, I replied, standing up and gathering my notes. Outside my office, the company I built hummed with activity, a living testament to what happens when you believe in yourself even when no one else does. This wasn't the end of my story, it was just the beginning. Because sometimes the greatest success isn't in proving others wrong, but in showing them a better way forward. And as I walked into the meeting room where my sister waited, I knew that this was the real victory, not just building a successful company, but building a bridge across the chasm of doubt and dismissal that had separated us for so long. The future stretched out before us, full of possibilities neither of us could have imagined at that wedding a year ago. And this time, we would face it together, both of us finally understanding that true success isn't about following someone else's path. It's about having the courage to forge your own.